Hello, today is December 4th, 2011. This is part 2 of my video. I already have completed part 1 and hopefully you've already watched that. This is part 2 of the video and it's on my November game of the month. That game is the game from the recent Tal Memorial between Hikura Nakamura and Vasily Ivanchuk. And it's a Grunfeld defense. Very quickly, we're just going to run through the first part of the opening. I've already covered this in greater detail, obviously, in part 1. But just quickly, we're going to run through the first part of the opening and get to the 15th move, because that's where I left the video off at the last time. Obviously, knight b5 was inferior. The move knight f3 here would have been a little bit better. I covered this in detail in part 1. And also, I will have a web page, and when the web page is finished, the link to that will be posted on the show more. If you under the video, there's a little part that says show more, and when the web page is completed and formatted, I will put the link to that in that area below the video itself. But anyway, at this point, Nakamura played knight b5. This was forced. We have these further moves here, and now black plays 10e5, and he's actually offering to sacrifice an exchange. I covered already this in part 1. Continuing on, we have 12 bishop e2. All these moves at this point were forced. White played knight f3. Black played rook c8. I covered in part 1 that queen c8 might have been a better move. Putting the queen to c8 might have been a slightly better move than rook c8 here. It was a move found by the engines. I didn't find that move. But it's a logical move. I mean, the idea is to bring the queen to c8 and then use the rook. The bishop has to retreat and then bring the rook to the d file. Also, too, queen c8 actually sets a nifty little trap that, only a class player, a low class player might fall into. But after queen c8, if white played queen d6, then knight e8 just wins a piece, just, right off the bat wins the game. But of course, a grandmaster would never fall for that. After queen c8, bishop to g3, and then rook d8, and black grabs the initiative by virtue of the loss of tempo, and also the fact that the white queen must move again. And also, black can follow this up by playing his bishop to d3, and now white's basically going to be unable to castle. But anyway, that's some of the ideas behind queen c8. I did cover that, in the part 1 of this video. This is part 2. Rook c8 and bishop g3 was forced, and now black plays knight e4. And as I told you in part 1 of this video, that this was the simplest move, and I believe this is the correct move here. The machines, like, instead of knight e4 here, they prefer the move both Fritz and Houdini and several other engines as well. They're looking at the move knight d7 here, and in my mind, that just gets into an unclear position. I'm not sure why the engines all choose that move. It's something to do with a search algorithm or something that's some feature that's standing out in their, of some positions they're reaching. Maybe if I gave them hours and hours, they might not choose that move. I only gave them about half an hour, so it wasn't a very deep analysis. But just, quickly, they seem to, first 10 or 20 minutes, they seem to like that knight d7 move. I much prefer the move chosen by Ivanchuk, knight e4. It simply gives black a solid edge here. And now we're picking up the video. This is basically all this was already covered in part 1 of my video. Now I'm covering, this is part 2 of my video on the game of the month. Black just played knight e4. This is his 15th move. This is the critical position. Of course, white's got to exchange here. Now, white took with the bishop. Problem with taking the knight is almost impossible, because then b2 will hang to the bishop on g7 on the long diagonal. So this is pretty much forced in my mind. White has to play this, and both sides now play several moves that are forced. 17 rook d8, queen a4. The queen is hit by the black rook on the d file. So now the queen is forced to move. Queen a4. This hits the black bishop on e4 with a gain of tempo, and it was virtually the only move there according to the chess engines. If white didn't play that, then black would have gotten a huge advantage. Black plays bishop d3. That hits the rook. Rook d1. And now the d file, the open d file, is critical. And also, too, there's still the possible threat, if this rook moves off the d file, that white may play bishop to d6. So being the d file is as critical as it is, it's just logic says, and the engines confirm this, that both sides basically will double their rook on the b file here very shortly. But first, black he has to do something about his hanging a pawn. Now, a careless move like pushing his pawn to a6 could ruin his position to queen b3, and the engines already show that white's clearly better there. So Ivanchuk can't be casual in his approach to this position. In fact, modern chess tells us that black must always play energetically and not worry about material loss. And he plays the correct move here, the move that I believe the engines, in deep analysis, I spent several hours. In fact, I did an overnight DPDA with a couple of the chess engines with this. And this is the correct move here for black. It's the most energetic. Now, the key move, the crucial move, and this is what I don't understand about this game, is basically is white should have taken the a-pawn here. That's a critical move. The analysis will be on my website. I don't have time to analyze every move carefully, and like I said, I'm different from most video commentators, and they're actually trying to do an analysis online, and my focus is much different because when I complete the web page, I will have all my analysis there, and you'll be able to examine that, in great detail at your leisure. And so when I do a video, I'm basically trying to act as a commentator and point out what I think might or might not be important in the game, and then you can leave the analysis for your own chess engine and also consult my webpage. But here, the crucial position, this is one of the key positions of the whole game, and it's a very critical position, and all the engines agree that white had to play queen takes a7 here. He doesn't play this move, and also, too, I was also surprised that Grandmaster Alejandro Ramirez, in his analysis for ChessBase, did not point this alternative out. But it's absolutely positively the correct decision for white, and the analysis will show basically that we reach a position that might be slightly better for black, but it's certainly not a decisive advantage, and it would have been a vast improvement over the actual game. But anyway, here black played the pawn advance b5 here. That's basically slaps the queen in the face, and now the queen, like I said, if you can't go back to c2, that drops the queen to the bishop on d3. b3 looks very bad simply because the queen doesn't have any squares, and so really there's only a couple of moves here. Queen a3 looks like it might walk into a later pin. Black might play a move like rook a8 and or later on or something like that, but the queen might eventually be vulnerable to a move like b5, b4, or maybe black just plays queen e7 with the idea of in a couple of moves, or queen e6. But the idea is later he can move his rook over and play the idea of a5, b4 here. But the point being is that really the only good two squares for white might be queen a5, queen a6, and queen takes pawn on a7. All the other squares, or maybe possibly b3 as an inferior move, but not totally lost. But the queen would be greatly constricted there. I think it's and the engines show that that's an inferior move, but at least the queen's not in danger of getting trapped anytime soon there. The queen will be out of play, which I think is very serious, and probably might even lose the game for white. But at least the queen is not in danger of being trapped. But here I think the two crucial moves for white was queen to a6 and also queen takes pawn on a7. Nakamura does neither one. He plays queen a5. And this positively absolutely has to be a mistake. It's a mistake in the terms of evaluations of the chess engines. The position goes down in value for white. It's a mistake in terms of psychology and the fact that by taking the pawn, you're basically telling your opponent, I don't believe your concept is sound. I'm going to take the pawn, and let's see if you can prove to me that that your concept is sound. In fact, I think I very quickly just want to take a look at the analysis of this move instead of this faulty move queen a7 here going back. Let's just quickly look at this queen takes a7 line here. Queen takes a7, b4. This is absolutely the best move. Knight a4. It's only like the only move there. The other move is knight e2, which just drops the knight to bishop takes e2, or knight b1, which is just horrible because of bishop takes b2. So really, knight a4 was the only move. Of course, noting that the knight on a4 guards the pawn. The pawn is not unprotected. The bishop on g7. But of course, that it was forced, but it's also a horrible square for the knight because the knight on a4 basically is on the edge of the board and has almost zero mobility. Bishop e2, rook e1. Believe it or not, white cannot exchange the rooks here. You can just use if you're curious about this, you need to use your own chess engine and verify that. I've already analyzed this position pretty deeply, and if white exchanged the rooks, he very quickly gets a bad position. But rook e1 is absolutely best, or forced. Bishop b5, attacking the knight. b3, the knight's got to move here. I'm sorry, wait a minute, let's go back here. That was a mistake. Going back to the position after bishop to b5. Bishop b5 here, just want to point out that black's threat here is rook a8, and then of course if this knight isn't protected, then basically white will be losing a piece. So that's why b3 was forced here. Now black plays rather queen d7, offering to exchange the queens. The queens come off, and at this point, black has more than enough play for the pawn. He's certainly not losing. In fact, most engine analysis will show that black's better. But the bottom line is that it's not a clear win for black. In fact, it's not even a clear advantage for black. And I would rate the position as basically as being unclear. And this had to have been the critical position or the critical continuation. And it's even possible that Nakamura analyze something like this when he played his knight b5 lunge, or maybe this was some of his computer analysis. It's very possible he got into the game and forgot what he had prepared. This happens to grandmasters all the time. Modern chess has become so complex in that a grandmaster will deeply prepare a computer line, and then he gets into actual play, and he may not even recall, exactly what he was supposed to do. So I'm not sure exactly what happened to Nakamura in this game. I think the answer is much more complicated than he just simply played a bad move, or he played a stupid line, or he just suddenly started playing like a Class C player. I don't think that was the case at all. I really think that it was a case of either he did not anticipate his opponent's responses, or he had something deeply prepared and simply forgot what his analysis was. But whatever the case was, this was the critical line for white, and this is the line that he should have played. And if he played this, I really think the game would have had an entirely different outcome. Maybe black might have won, but I think it would have been a much harder struggle. Certainly, I doubt if Ivanchuk would have won as easily and as simply as he did in this actual game. But going anyway, back to queen a5 here. White played the move. Of course, black played the pawn advance, b5, which pops the white queen, forces the white queen to make a decision. And white went queen a5 here. That was just the inferior move. I mean, that was just a move that was wrong on several different levels. And the big thing is that the queen is going to be completely out of play here, and actually in danger in some lines of being trapped. So if you're going to be trapped, you might as well go ahead and try to take the pawn. But this is just bad here, I think, all the way around. But now black plays rook d7, and now let's go back here a little bit. In this position, this is a very key position here, and I want to talk a little bit about this, especially for players who may not be of the more advanced class, and maybe you're a lower rated player and wondering how do you handle this kind of position. It's actually very close. I mean, for even for a grandmaster, black doesn't have an overwhelming game, not by any stretch of the imagination. And basically in such positions, you try to logically find what the key line is, or the key break, or what the key idea in this position is. In this position, the open d file is critical, so it's very logical that both players will quickly double their rooks on the d file, and that's exactly what happens. Rook d7, queen d2, queen e7, rcd1, rfd8. And here the computers show now that black has a very clear edge here. There's many different factors why black is better. Probably the two greatest ones is that black has a queenside pawn majority. His pieces are organized a little bit better, and also too the fact that black has the bishop pair. That's actually three factors. And still, nonetheless, though, I don't think that it's an overwhelming advantage. In fact, it's light years from being a clearly won game for black. And I think with correct play, this game definitely should have been drawn. And I think I can prove that by virtue of my analysis here. But unfortunately, Nakamura, I think he used a lot of time in the opening. I mean, that's an absolute fact. And also, too, I think he was upset with himself with the way that the game turned out. It obviously did not turn out at all the way he had anticipated when he played his lunge, early in the opening of knight b5. So sometimes when you're playing chess, it's very easy to let emotional factors overcome you. Obviously, it's very easy to get conquered by the clock. Sometimes if you fall way behind your opponent on the chess clock in a tournament game, then that in itself can become a huge factor. And I'm not sure exactly what the cause of Nakamura's downfall was in this game, but certainly he goes on to lose the game from here. I'm going to go ahead and end this video now, and this will be part 2 of the video of my game of the month for November. The next installment, I'm going to make a part 3, and in that, hopefully in part 3 of the video, we'll be able to finish looking at this game, the game of the month. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll watch, of course, part 3, and have a great day.